units RV absorption refrigerator. We knew we wanted to upgrade when choosing one for the new rig. So in this video, we're going to review how we ended up with our AC compressor refrigerator and how it checks all the boxes. Before Steve actually goes into the details, I just wanted to introduce you into the list of things that we were considering when picking out the type of refrigerator we would use in the new rig. And based on our past experience, there were several things that we did not like about the old RV refrigerator. Two of the key items were the size, so we knew we wanted to go bigger. And second was the performance, the heat. So if it was hot or we were moving and driving, it was just hard to keep it cool inside. And that also meant the freezer, and of course soft ice cream was always a problem. But performance of that refrigerator unit was definitely a challenge for us, and that meant we dug a little deeper into some of the research issues of the type of refrigerator that we would choose for this rig.
It's worth taking some time to discuss how we ended up with the refrigerator that we have and the system that we have. When we had the opportunity to build a new camper, we were unconstrained in the type of fridge or the size of fridge that we wanted to have, that we could have. And so we just opened up our scope of thinking to, based upon the experience we had with the absorption 6 cubic foot in our Lance camper, what did we want to have for this camper? And so we established some goals, and some of the goals really started off with, we wanted something bigger. We wanted a bigger freezer. In particular, we found that the freezer in the absorption fridge in the Lance was very small. Not that we, and part of it is that when you jam pack an absorption refrigerator full of stuff, it doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well to begin with. It has a very low temperature delta performance due to the absorption. So we set out some standards, and I'm going to read from a list here of things that we wanted. We wanted something that was at least 10 cubic foot. And any bigger than that, it was probably going to exceed the size, the space requirements we wanted to allow it. But we wanted to have a ratio of freezer to fridge, or fridge to freezer, of about 2 to 1. We wanted to have a good size freezer. We wanted to have a bottom freezer, because in this case, in the case of the Lance camper, where the refrigerator starts by sitting on the box rail, it's already 2 feet off the floor. We would like the fact that the refrigerator was on top of and the freezer was on bottom, because that would put the freezer in a less easily accessible space and keep the refrigerator up where we were working. We wanted the refrigerator to have a couple of drawers, and this gets into what we're used to from our domestic refrigerator, is that we really enjoyed having a separate vegetable drawer and a meat and cheese drawer. In the freezer, one of the problems we've always had with our freezer, you got an up freezer and it's fairly full, and you open it up and it's been traveling around, all the stuff tumbles out in your lap. As a matter of fact, the dog's bed was right beneath the freezer, and anytime you got near that refrigerator freezer, he was up and out of his bed because he was afraid that something was going to fall on it, because it had frequently. So having a bottom freezer with drawers in it became, as we went through the analysis, became a very desirable thing. We wouldn't have the control problems of having things fall out of the freezer, and we could, with the compartmentalization we could achieve with drawers, it was just ideal, I think, for being able to put in there what we wanted to put in there. So those were our criteria that we kind of laid out, the unconstrained thinking, as it were. When we really sit down to identify what fridges were in the marketplace, we really identified 3 categories of fridges. And when I originally started off in this search, I was convinced that I wanted what I have in my first category, which is a solar refrigerator, which was a DC compressor refrigerator with very thick insulation. And I started looking at what was available in that marketplace, and there was really a very small quantity of refrigerators available of those sizes that we wanted, with any kind of feature content at all. And I actually found one I fell in love with and it was a Spanish import to the United States. And as I got more and more into it, I couldn't find one for it. So I was unable to get the one that I truly wanted, which basically fit all my criteria and had exceptional efficiency. So I went back to the drawing boards and I started looking at, well, what are the RV DC refrigerator offerings? And Furrion, Norcold, and Dometic all have about a 10 cubic foot refrigerator freezer. They're all top freezers. They're all about the same size, and they all have very similar features. And it was kind of back to what I would call a very Spartan, feature-rich product offering. Didn't really have anything that I would say was particularly recommending, other than it was in fact an RV refrigerator, which should indicate that it's more hardened against rough travel. So I started looking at residential refrigerators, and there was a large category of apartment-sized fridges which would fit in the 24-inch width and 24-inch depth that I was allowing for this refrigerator. And heights were thing. And what I found was there was a lot of features that were unavailable in either the solar refrigerators or RV refrigerators that were brought us into the category of things we wanted. If I were to use a high efficiency AC refrigerator, what would that look like as an energy consumption comparison? I knew that the solar refrigerators had a very low energy consumption. They were on the order of 700 watt hours per day, which was extremely competitive. The energy consumption of the RV DC compressor refrigerators was over 1,000 watt hours per day. So there was an immediate 30 to 40% increase from solar refrigerators. So what would an AC refrigerator look like? And so I started to look and do some calculations on energy efficiencies. And one of the things that I stumbled upon was a YouTube video by Charles Sterling, who is the owner and chief architect in Sterling Power Products, who essentially, when I did the paper analysis, that did confirm that I could run an AC feature-rich apartment refrigerator. This is a high efficiency 11.4 cubic feet refrigerator that is extremely feature rich and extremely energy efficient, even while considering the fact that I have to keep an inverter running 24 hours a day in order to operate it. I'm very surprised at the choices that I made, and kind of want to share with you the potential for this. So this is a Blomberg refrigerator made by Blomberg, is a German appliance manufacturer. They make both standard efficiency and high efficiency units. This unit in a standard efficiency is actually is a couple $100 more expensive than this unit, and the standard efficiency unit consumes about 1,055 watt hours per day. This unit consumes 780 watt hours a day. So it's about a 20% decrease in power consumption. This uses a 2-speed compressor, which the other inherent part of using a 2-speed compressor is it reduces the starting surge. Many refrigeration appliances have a very high starting surge, which requires a higher powered supply to drive it. So that's what I was thinking is, well, if I could get a unit that had a very low power consumption, I could also get a very small inverter. And so that was attractive to me, because the 2-speed compressor starts out slow and ramps up, and so it doesn't have the high starting surge. So I was set to go find myself a 300 watt pure sine inverter to drive this refrigerator with. And what I found was, when I started comparing the idle current draws of certain manufacturers of inverters, I had early on decided that I was looking for, in the small inverter market, 24 volt inverter, which is what I was looking for. And what I found with their reliable electric product offering, they had 300, 400, 600, and 800 watt units, all in 24 volt available. And so I started comparing the idle current of each of those, and what I found was that they were all the same. That the 300 watt inverter had the same idle draw as an 800 watt inverter, probably because they just copied the same circuitry. High efficiency of the AC compressor refrigerator that I was able to match or even slightly exceed what I could get with a DC compressor refrigerator, which is what Charles Sterling's thesis was, which he had proved also. So I think I have proved the same thing. So once I bought the components and assembled them, put them together and tested it, it has borne out that the idle power consumption of the inverter is actually less than specified, and it performs exceedingly well as a pair. The high efficiency refrigerator has great features, great room. It's no heavier, no lighter than the RV compressor refrigerators, and I'm just really pleased with my whole system. It is virtually silent. You cannot hear it operate virtually at any time, and that's a wonderful thing when you're in a enclosed space. And so now I have a solution that is virtually silent. The refrigerator itself is virtually silent. All in all, this refrigerator will consume around 1,000 watt-hours per day, which is essentially the equivalent, if you want to put this in equivalent of how much solar panel do I need to power this refrigerator, it would take about 250 watts of solar panel throughout the day in order to keep this refrigerator satisfied. And since I'm going to have around 950 watts on my roof, which should more than adequately provide for the power requirements for this refrigerator. Even when installing an DC electric refrigerator, many RV manufacturers put an external vent into the cabin to vent the now 1/8 as much heat as that refrigerator will discharge. I did not want to have another penetration into my waterproof envelope, and so what I have is almost directly above the refrigerator, I have an external vent fan. So if the refrigerator thermally siphons, heat's going to rise off the back of the refrigerator. It's going to find itself on the ceiling. Normally speaking, if the environment is warm, I'm going to have a vent fan on anyway. So I believe that I will externally discharge all the heat that's generated by my refrigerator with no external ventilation. That's been the truth. I have found no issues with trying to discharge heat. Now, putting a residential refrigerator in something designed and intended to go off-road, such as mine, may hasten its demise. That remains to be seen.
Installing the refrigerator for us was easy. We designed in a large rear hatch and drop-down door specifically for bringing in large items. Now, in many RVs or trailers looking to replace their refrigerator, how you remove and bring in a large appliance is going to drive which type and size refrigerator you can install. The initial thoughts were to install a brace at the back wall and install the front back brackets to keep the unit stable front to back. As we quickly learned on our shakedown trip, this turned out to be insufficient for even highway driving. The refrigerator shifted side by side enough to cause one of our front brackets to interfere with the gasket, and the door was not staying closed. After we figured out it was shifting, Steve made shims and added them to the top of the refrigerator, which would keep it from moving side to side. Now we had a secure install that was successful with highway driving as well as on the first day of our trail run, which was a gravel road with some washboard. Well, it remained secure until we went through day 2 of our trail run. We learned that the refrigerator bottom needed the same additional shims on each side. We had more shifting, and a front back bracket again interfered with the door gasket. Although our child-proof door latch kept the door from opening, it wasn't fully sealing, which is not a good thing both for the contents as well as the power drain. Thank you for joining us and checking out our custom camper. We have much more to do in the rig through the year and look forward to being out on the road. We enjoy sharing our project and providing inspiration for yours. So if you are a fellow truck camper, RVer, van lifer, like this video and follow our continued progress and travels in the new rig by subscribing. We hope to see you out on the road, and good luck with your own working and exploring.